Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I am here with my third episode of my Halloween horror movie review series, and it's yet for another Wreck sequel. Yeah, guys, they actually decided to milk the franchise, and then of course the movie is for Wreck 3 Genesis. Fortunately, while it is a wreck film, it unfortunately really sucks. And here's so many reasons why. There's a typical pattern when it comes to certain found footage sequels. Alright, here's one example with the very first found footage film. You remember that movie, The Blair Witch Project? Well, it got so many good reviews, it was critically acclaimed by critics, well, someone mixed from audiences, but it's actually a pretty big game changer in the horror genre because it set up the found footage genre in the first place, so it's technically still remembered greatly among horror fans despite its mixed audience reviews, and there's still quite a few horror fans that actually do consider it a somewhat decent, not great, but it's still kind of a decent film, and actually gave a lot of credit for setting up something brand new that was never done before. It was so successful at the box office, it actually made over $248 million worldwide because nobody knew found footage films at the time. They actually thought this was an actual real life thing that happened to real people. They didn't even know it was just all a movie. Something that was pretty big for the 90s at that time. So, since it made over $240 million worldwide on a $60,000 budget, Artisan went, I got a great idea. Let's make a sequel and piss everyone off on it and make it not found footage. Yeah, and that sequel to Blair Witch was actually Book of Shadows. It got released, got rushed just a year after its predecessor, and it was not even found footage. It had nothing to even do with the Blair Witch Project, and guess what? It sucked! And it barely even made that much money at the box office, despite making it only $47 million, $50 million budget. It wasn't even that successful. So, pretty much, another sequel will not happen until Blair Witch 2016, which actually went back to found footage, and was actually, well, not a great sequel, but it was definitely better than Book of Shadows. Then, take also 2010's The Last Exorcism. That was a found footage movie, got decent reviews from critics, and made a somewhat decent amount of money at the box office with nearly over $70 million worldwide on a $1 million budget. So, of course, since that's pretty successful, since that budget was very low of $1 million, and was actually not a bad budget, guess what? They also made a sequel, and it abandoned the found footage format. And guess what? That sequel, Last Exorcism Part 2, actually had the girl from the first one return. Actually, thankfully kept the story from the first one, but it did not go found footage, and it also sucked. And it actually did not make any profit at the box office, and pretty much killed the franchise for attempting a third one. So, and now unfortunately, the very same thing happened with this abortion. Wreck 3. Same example with Wreck 1 and 2. They were found footage, they were liked, they were actually decently successful for their low budgets for Spanish films. So, of course, Wreck 3 was made. And like I'm gonna say, like you already know, it sucked. But enough about talking about that stuff. Let's just get into why this movie is such an atrocity from hell. Well, for starters, if you've seen Wreck 1 and 2, you either love it because you're a hardcore fan, or hate it with this. If you've seen Wreck 1 and Wreck 2, you'll know and likely probably like them because they are such scary and terrifying films because of how realistically filmed they are. They're perfect films. You don't know when the scares come, and they're perfect setup. They are very claustrophobic. And they're not even the camera barely shakes at all, only at the necessary moments so you actually can see the picture clear. And that's what I call, and it's true terror because most of the moments in the first one were improvised. And this time, the director and writers, well, they were trying to go something a little different. And add some new material. But unfortunately add some new material, which unfortunately is actually very desperate and very stupid and idiotic. Basically, the movie doesn't even go anywhere near the infected apartment, and goes for a different setting. Basically about this couple named Clara and Caldo's wedding, unfolding through the lens of a video camera. Actually, why am I even saying that? It's basically no video camera in this. There is a video camera in the first scene of the film, but then the camera turns off and it just cuts normal format for the rest of the whole film. Professor Essen, but then it also bears on blinking witnesses to the shocking reality of chaos and horror that ensues. After a virus spreads through the reception, transforming the wedding guests into something inhuman and forcing the newlywed couple into a terrifying fight for their lives, separated amid the mayhem, the newlyweds discover the true meaning of the vow till death do us apart. I honestly just hate every minute of this film. They basically tried to go a more comedic route, it's like they practically tried to go the Evil Dead route with this sequel and miserably failed. Okay, I'll admit that. The Evil Dead is a perfectly great trilogy, because one, they're just meant to be really corny and fun and goofy while having horror elements. The first one, was kind of a serious horror film, but it had goofy elements too. Rec 1 and 2 are completely different. They have no comedy in them, and they're outright terrifying films. And the characters in this film don't even seem like the funny characters you would find in a typical slasher movie. Well, sure, the second one had those foolish teenagers, but they actually seemed like Rec characters, and they were actually caught in a terrifying situation, and that made their story also just as terrifying in Rec 2. The drama and fear from the first two movies are lost, and they practically also try to copy another great zombie flick, Shaun of the Dead, which I do recommend you check out because that is a good flick. But back to Rec 3, when you mix it into a serious movie, then it becomes an absolute mess. The movie is also slow, it's boring, it drags on forever, and I tried so hard to give this movie a chance, but I barely even got through it. Oh, man. But I even tried to watch it with an open mind and lowered expectations because, well, I knew it would suck because it was abandoning the found footage format, and it was going to fall into the same fates as Last Exorcism 2 and Book of Shadows, and it unfortunately did. I would actually call Rec 3 the Book of Shadows of the Rec films. Sure, say what you want about Rec 4, but that movie also sucks, but at least it goes back to the setting of the first film, so that's kind of the only good quality of that film, but I'm going to be reviewing that film next, but I want to just get back to Rec 3. Honestly, I don't even know what else to say about Rec 3, I just really hate this movie so much, and if you're a fan of Rec 1 and 2, avoid this movie like a plague. It's a complete insult to the franchise. I am going to give Rec 3 Genesis a 0 out of 10. Well, now that I am officially done talking about Rec 3, I can finally put this crap away, and I can talk about the next Rec movie that's also terrible for next review, and that's Rec 4 Apocalypse. But hey, at least it's the last Rec sequel I have to talk about, and then I can just talk about Quarantine, and then I'll finally be done on my Rec reviews. Yes, but anyway, guys, that'll be it for this video. Thank y'all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.